Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Divine Cupid podcast. If you're new, I'm your host, India Watson, and if you're not new, welcome back. I have so many things that I want to say. Number one, we reached 80 subscribers on YouTube. That is such a big deal. My podcast was literally like at zero for a really long time. Like, despite me like trying to upload more often, my numbers were not changing, and like slowly but surely my podcast on not only like Spotify and Apple Podcasts but also on YouTube has started to grow, and I'm very thankful and grateful for that, and I'm very pleased with the amount of effort and consistency that I've started to put into my podcast, because I feel like I'm really starting to see that, and like the support and in the comments and just like the subscribers that I'm now gaining through the consistency of my work, and I'm very like pleased with that, and I think that's such a like beautiful milestone to celebrate. Okay, I had tried to record a podcast episode for a really long time. All of them were trash. I was like, I don't understand, like it's like things that I want to talk about and things that I've been going through that I'm like, okay, I can talk about this. But every time I try to open my mouth and let words come out, I feel like brain dead. Like I feel like not a single coherent sentence comes out. And because I've been like going through so much and having so many different like realizations and so many like epiphanies, I was like, let me just do an episode that kind of circulates around every single thing that I feel like I want to talk about. Instead of just like, dividing each one up into an episode and trying to like stretch it out and make it like long lasting. So on this Valentine's Day, I'm going to tell you guys 10 things that I think are really dumb. I've been really like, I don't want to say like going through it, but in my mind, I've really been like going through so many different thoughts and like thinking so many different things. And so the first, and this is all like my personal opinion, and they're not like actually dumb things. It's things that I've learned, like the concept and the idea of it is dumb to me. So number one is ghosting. Now this is really crazy coming from someone who's an avid ghoster. Like I'm like an avid ghoster. And I really was like, I thought that ghosting was like practical, and I thought it was like the nicest way to like distance yourself, and I thought it was the best way to like, remove yourself from a situation, until I got ghosted. And I always say, like, you really learn to be more empathetic and compassionate in situations once you're in them. And so, and I'm like, I've been ghosted before, but this time I was kind of like, damn, like, oh, I got ghosted. And I feel like when you are the ghoster, when you are the one doing anything and inflicting any kind of hurt, any kind of like confusion, any kind of feelings onto another person, obviously you're fine because it's not happening to you and you're the one being afflicted. Or you're being the afflictor. But when you are afflicted by it, I think it opens your eyes and makes you more compassionate to how other people might potentially feel in those situations. This is why I think ghosting is dumb. I think obviously if I never had gotten ghosted, I obviously would continue to ghost people, because in my mind I thought I was doing it in such a respectful and kind way that it was just me naturally like trying to break conversation, like break ties, like me naturally trying to like signal like, hey, please leave me alone. Like, oh my gosh, please, like I need space. Like that was my way of like what I thought I was doing. But being on the receiving end of that, I'm like, oh, this is the worst feeling of my life. Like I'm losing my mind, because it's like I have so many questions, and I'm like, what did I like do something wrong? Like what's happening? And I figured that when people are, and some people just don't care. Like there's also that thought, like sometimes you will get ghosted and you just won't care. And like it'd just be like a mutual like we just stop talking kind of thing. But there are in those instances where you do care and it is like an issue for you. You do have those like, dang, like I thought things were going good, like we were just like yapping like a couple days ago, and now it's like, hello, like can I hear you? And the crazy thing about ghosting is such a like open window that it's for people to be able to go in and out of it when they please. Ghosting is really so like, oh, right now I don't feel like talking to you, but later I might. So I'm not going to like say, hey, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm just going to stop responding. So then maybe in a couple months from now, I won't have to give you no real apology, no real explanation as to where I went, and I can just go back to talking to you like it was normal. That is why I think ghosting is dumb, because when you really think about the principle and like the purpose of ghosting and why it's done, you realize it's just so people can come in and out of your lives when they please, because ghosting really does no direct damage, except for it just makes you feel kind of like shit about yourself. Like it makes you kind of feel like shit about the conversation, about the situation, about whatever, like especially in its suddenness of it ending. But it's really just so like, hey, I don't feel like talking to you right now, but I'm gonna talk to you later. Like, I'm gonna talk to you later. I'm gonna leave the door open. This isn't me closing the door. This is me keeping my foot in the door. Like, I will text you back at some point. And I'm also just a person who thinks like, I've always thought like everyone comes back. And like, yeah, I've always thought like everyone comes back. Everybody, because that's just how life is. Like, you know, you're always just gonna be put at a loop where like you're thinking of someone, you're considering something, like just something. I think everybody just comes back to talking to each other at some point. It's just such a small world and such a like full circle that it's like you're bound to be in interaction at some point. Like, I just inevitably think that's how that works. So yeah, I've just learned to feel like ghosting is a really dumb thing, and I don't think, like, from someone who was an avid ghoster and thought they were doing something right, I learned that it's just really like a stupid tactic to be like, hey, I'm gonna talk to you later when I feel like it. Like, I don't feel like it right now, but when I feel like it, or when the situation and the circumstances line up for me when I want them to, then we will be back in cohorts. And that's like something that I think is dumb. The second thing I think is like really dumb is the normalization of a lack of communication and the like idea of being like nonchalant and being like fake reserved and fake mysterious. I don't like none of that. I think that's so dumb. I think a lot of these ideas that came from me, I was at work and I was mopping the floor and I was thinking about how society has placed so many like rules and standards on us to limit us from being ourselves and being apologetic in who we are and being open and being honest and being vulnerable. Like, we just limit ourselves to being something we're not. Like, the idea of being nonchalant is so stupid to me, because it's like, why do you want to be less of who you are? Why do you want to show less of your personality? Why do you want to be less of anything that you already are? Like, why are you taking a flame and trying to put it out? Like, I never understood that. And like, I was thinking about how like we have talking stages now. I've never, like, what the heck is a talking stage? Like, what is that? Like, that does not exist. That is not a real thing. It's either, excuse me, we're like dating, and dating isn't even like an exclusive thing. Like, dating is like like, you know, I'm seeing you, you're seeing me, like, we're seeing other people at the same time. Like, it's just, we're dating and we're going on dates, we're hanging out, we're getting to know each other. And then, boom, if that prevails, you know, we're together. What the heck is a talking stage? Being nonchalant, being mysterious. I literally, like, because I have fallen victim to this whole, like, oh, like, I want to be mysterious. And a lot of people think being mysterious is, like, you not posting and you, like, having zero social media presence and, like, everything about you is, like, hard to read. No. Being mysterious is just me not telling you every single detail about my life. Being mysterious is me, like, saying, oh, like, hey, I'm gonna go do this, and then going to do that, and then boom, I'm doing something. Like, you just shouldn't be able to keep up with me. That's the point. I feel like we just limit ourselves so much to kind of adhere to the standard that, like, society has created for us, that I think is just really dumb. Like, I don't understand the point of trying to limit yourself and be less of yourself for the sake of other people. I just think, like, why? Like, why? Especially since I've seen so many videos of, like, I hate the idea of having to care less and love people less. Like, I wrote a tweet a couple days ago that, like, when I was, like, talking to someone, like, we were talking seriously, and we have been talking for a while. I want to say, like, almost a year. And, like, this is why I say, like, talking stages are dumb, because talking stages just give you that, like, exclusive right to be with somebody exclusively without the title, because so many people are so turned off by titles and labels that they'd rather just give you half of something than the complete fullness of something. So you are settled with that and you're comfortable with that and you're okay with that. And at the time, I wasn't thinking straight, baby. Oh, I would not have ever in my life settled for something like that. But at the time, I was just not thinking straight. So I was like, oh yeah, we've been talking for damn near like a year. So, not the point, but this person had told me that I'm too much. Like, I'm too much. Like, not like I do too much, because it was never like, boom, we're arguing every day. It's just like, I don't know if it was like a standard that I had that they just couldn't reach. Like, that was too much of a standard, but that I was just too much. And I would really like struggle. Like, what does that mean? Like, did I like care about you too much? Was I like being myself too much? Like, I don't know. And because we have like this idea that we are supposed to limit ourselves to be just enough for someone else, I think is so wrong. Like, I feel like I've just stopped trying to like limit myself to accommodate other people, because it's like, if I'm gonna laugh and joke and be this like bubbly and giggly person, then that's just who I am, and it's either you take it or leave it. Like, you should never have to dim yourself down and lower yourself to accommodate other people. I just would never understand that. And I don't, like, I feel like anybody would let that comment go to their brain and let them dictate how they operate in other relationships and how they interact with other people. Just because someone couldn't handle you then does not mean everybody can't handle you now. Like, the crazier thing too is people evolve and they change and they grow and they learn from so many things that every day, like, you're learning from whatever, like, you're growing from the person that you were yesterday. The same person that I was yesterday, I'm not today. Even if you carry those same mannerisms, you're still growing every single day. A lot of people will let one negative comment just make that a deal breaker for everybody. Like, now I have to be less of myself. I will never stop being myself. I don't think anybody should ever really stop being themselves just to accommodate other people, because you're just constantly, that like stems in so much into people pleasing, that stems so much into trying to do things for other people. And it's like you're going the extra 9 yards, 10 yards, 30 yards for people who wouldn't go the extra step. Like, I stopped trying to be more for others and less for others because I realized, like, nobody was really doing that all for me. So why are you limiting yourself for people who, they're going to show up as themselves every single day and they're going to be okay and content with that because they're secure in that. So just be secure in that. Did that get off subject from the lack of communication? Yes, most definitely. But I think, like, it's just the idea that we're supposed to be so many things that we're not, and we're supposed to limit so many things that naturally we are. Like, we want to fit in this box, and I don't understand why everybody wants to fit in the same box and all these boxes want to look the same, and why nobody wants to just like be themselves anymore. But I'm very like, I find that like a pet peeve, to just go around in my life and feel like I have to be less and be more secretive and be more like to myself. So like, I just like, I'm not fond of that. Recently, like in my life, I've been having like dreams about people. This is like a really weird thing to me. So I've been having dreams about people that I no longer talk to. And it's been like friends. Like I had a dream about like my like 2 ex-best friends, and in this dream we were like, this was like a school event. This was a school. I've had 2 dreams about them. So the first dream it was like the Purge. And then the second dream, we're at Six Flags. And like it's like a school-wide thing, except we're not seniors in high school. I don't know, like everyone from like my high school is there, but like we're just not like in high school. Okay. And it was like, you know, super awkward vibes. Like it's like that. Like it's like, okay, like just distance. Okay. And in the dream we end up having, and this is the crazy part, this is what I think is so weird. In this dream we end up having a heart-to-heart, and we end up like sitting down and communicating and talking about things that weren't talked about, and like openly and honestly and vulnerably, like that was the conversation. That's dream number 1. Dream number 2 I had with another girl that I'm not friends with. Me and her were really close sophomore junior year, kind of sophomore year the most. We were really close, and then we stopped being friends, and she and I have like, I've never spoken to her past that point. Like past junior year, we've not had a conversation. And for the past week, she's been in my dreams. And it's so weird because it's like, I'm more of a out of sight, out of mind kind of person. So if it's like we're not like friends like that. So I had really no reason to, like, the people that have been in my dream space have really had no reason to be in my dream space. But me and her ended up like not having a heart-to-heart, but there was more vulnerability and compassion and empathy in this dream. And I was talking to my friend about this in the morning. Like I had texted him and I was like, look, I've been having like all of these dreams about like 3 specific people, and I'm like trying to figure out what they mean. And I had a dream about another person that I recently just stopped talking to. This was like, I don't really know what to call this person, but this was like a thing that had just like ended suddenly. And I had like a dream of us like giggling, like laughing, like being on the phone, like da-da-da-da, which is like, that's never been, like, we've never talked. We've never like been on the phone together. So I've just had all these dreams about people, and they've all had to do with empathy, compassion, forgiveness, and I've centered that around, that's what my subconscious mind is telling me to do, to be more empathetic, to be more compassionate, and to be more forgiving towards situations, regardless of how old they are, regardless of what the situation was, but to really like learn to let things go. You know, I've learned that I want apologies from people that I haven't even given them apologies. And there was like this quote that I had quoted, from this podcast that I listened to. I literally wish I could remember like the exact things that were said, but in all of your relationships, you're gonna go through ups and downs, but a lot of people believe like when you go through downs in a relationship that you're supposed to abandon it, which it depends on what the downs are, obviously, but when you go through downs in a relationship, I believe that the downs in my relationship were to show me something about myself. And in my subconscious mind, I'm having dreams about these people because there's still something else that I need to learn from it, which is compassion, empathy, and forgiveness, which is letting all of those things go so then I can move forward. I think when you're able to genuinely accept the situation and accept people for who they are and in the phases of what they were, you also understand that just as much as you hold a grudge towards them for something that just didn't go the way that you had anticipated and you had wanted, it's made me realize like I may not have been the perfect person myself in these shoes, in these boats, and in these relationships myself. So quickly are we to throw the blame and pin the blame on other people for their lacks and their shortcomings and the things that they just were not able to do for us. But it's like, what was it that they had wanted of us that we weren't able to do and to provide and to give them? It's not always, hey, you suck as a friend. Sometimes it's like, you reacted like this because I have been doing this, and I have been doing this because you have been doing this. And now it's just like, the lack of communication. That's what this one ties into too. But just the lack of being open, a lack of being honest, and a lack of being vulnerable, and just also not knowing when to reach out to people. When I get dreams like this, and when I'm having like dreams about it like consistently, I always think like, should I say something? Like, do I reach out to them? Like, do I tell them like, hey, like, I've been thinking about you. When I was in 8th grade, I would have dreams like this a lot. And this was when I like really started like finding peace with God and really started like building and mending a relationship with God, that I had realized like I had done so much wrong and I wanted to be accountable. Like I wanted to hold myself accountable, and I had went and I was like, I'm so sorry for these things. I don't think you can really go forward with people, and I don't really think anything could ever be water under the bridge if you don't really like take accountability for the situation. I think things will just always happen again. So whenever I do, reconvene with people in life, it's not that I'm like, oh, let's talk about like nothing like that, but I've just learned to be more accountable and what's the word? Remorseful. I've learned to be more remorseful in my actions, and I think my dreams have been showing me for the 3rd time empathy, compassion, and forgiveness, which are things that I value. But it's just been like a really big, like, do I reach out or do I not? Or do I like leave it alone? Like, when you're always like, when you just have dreams about people and now they're just a prominent thought on your mind for like a couple weeks and you're like, what does this mean? Like, I haven't been thinking about people for a really long time, and now all of a sudden like you come to mind. I just let the thoughts be thoughts, and I've let the feelings be feelings, and I've let them be things that I've recognized to realize within myself. And obviously, like, if any of my past had ever collided with people, I would never slam the door in your face. I would never be like, ew, I don't want to talk to you. Like, it would never be like that. One thing I realized, like, through my podcast, a lot of people will like listen to my podcast and they think like I'm very like, and even my sister was telling me this, they think I'm very like one and done. Like, if it's like you do something wrong to me, like, you're done, you're cut. And in some ways, I know I like portray that on my podcast to be true, because it is true. I'm very big on my boundaries because I was not before. It's very hard. I feel like there's a very thin line to me, because I feel like if I'm so used to like giving people the benefit of the doubt just for that to slap me in my face. So it's very hard for me to not give second chances, because I believe in second chances. I believe people change. I believe people grow. And I believe you can like learn from your mistakes, but I just don't want to experience the same hurt that I healed from. So I feel like there's like very like there's like very like it's more multidimensional than like I portray it to be. And on my podcast, I don't want it ever to come across as like I will cut you off for good and never like speak to you. I think in life, when people hurt you bad enough, it's never like you're never obligated to give them a relationship, friendship, like never anything like that. But what I do believe is you should still continue to give people love and kindness despite whatever situation has happened. I don't think I've ever like looked at a person and have wanted to give them nothing but hate and negativity. I think, like I said, people like make mistakes. I've made so many mistakes. I feel like everything just needs to be like a learning experience. So this kind of brings me into my next point, is just not being as forgiving. Forgiveness, I think, is one thing that not being forgiving is one thing that I think is really dumb. it's so easy to hold on to grudges. Nobody understands that. It's really easy to hold on to grudges because I believe that's the last tie you have to someone. Hatred can sometimes be such a fueling feeling because that is the last emotion and feeling you have towards someone before you finally let them go. A lot of people hate their exes, okay? You hate your ex because that is the last feeling that you have to bind yourself to them. You have nothing else connecting you besides that hatred. You have nothing else connecting you besides that pain. You have nothing else fueling you and your distaste and disdain for them because you want to say the love there is gone. You would rather build a whole like relationship and mental process around hatred and negativity and all the things that they've done wrong rather than focus on all the things that you once loved and all the things that you once appreciated. And one thing that I was like driving and listening to music and I realized like the idea of dating and relationships and friendships and just all of that is so weird to me because we instinctively, when we fall out with people, we want it to be beef so bad. We want it to be hatred so bad. We want it to be anger so bad. And we never just like can close the chapter. The people that you are the closest to, I hate, are the people that we have made ourselves hate the most now. People who know literally every single thing about you are people we want to hate so badly. And I know that it just comes from a feeling of like still yearning for something. You know, you could still be tied up in the hurt and in the pain. But when you're holding on to this lack of forgiveness and grasping onto these grudges, you don't understand how bitter it makes you and how angry it makes you. And I think like prime example, I had this like guy that I was talking to. Literally, I always would say like I hate his guts. Like I was like nobody dislikes this man how I dislike this man. Like I wouldn't give him a breadcrumb. Like I wouldn't give him a cup of water. I wouldn't give him a glass. I wouldn't give him the last oxygen tank. Like that was me for like 5 months. I'm not gonna lie. Like I think that was me for a really long time because I was just like so pent up on the hurt. I was so pent up on all the things that this person had done to me. One thing I realized like too is you are an aid and attributor to your own pain. You know when to leave a situation and you know when things aren't good for you. You know when it is time for you to say, hey, I'm out, but you continue to stay being optimistic that there will be some kind of change, knowing that there won't be. You continue to stay. So now I have to hold myself accountable in that fact. But in order to really like let it go, because I'm no longer holding on to this care and compassion for this person. I'm holding on to nothing but bitterness, hatred, and anger. I had to just accept the situation for what it was and like genuinely forgive. Forgiveness is so much easier said than done because I feel like I've been in situations where I'm like, oh yeah, I forgive you. And then something happens, you say something and it just triggers me back and I'm bringing up the same thing that you would apologize for. The reason that happens is because we have a lack of accepting a situation and we're not as gracious towards other people as we would expect them to be towards us. Like we would want someone to be like, bro, like I just made a mistake. Like I hope you can see it as a mistake it is. But when someone else does it, it's such a big problem and it's such a violator to our boundaries. You know, we're not as gracious with people as we want them to be with us. The whole idea of being forgiven is letting go and accepting a situation. When you let it go, when you accept a situation, you're really seeing it for what it is. You're seeing the situation for like whatever the situation is. I don't want to get too into specifics because I don't want it to seem like this is like a directed saying, but when you accept the situation for what it is, you're able to let it go because there's nothing else to really like put pieces together in your brain. You're like, this is what it is. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do to change it. There's nothing you can do to fix it. Like, the situation is what the situation is. There's nothing you can do to make it better, and there's nothing you can do to make it worse because that's what it is. And when you come to terms with that, you are able to let it go. And when you finally do both of those things, that is how you are able to forgive. When you recognize that people kind of lack within themselves just as the same way you lack within yourselves, it should make you very compassionate towards them. A lot of things I think in my life have made me a lot more compassionate because I understand, like, just as flawed as you are, I am just as flawed. Just as much as you might suck at something, I might suck at the same thing, but in a different way. The idea that we have that people are perfect and they're never going to do us any harm is so kind of like detrimental. And that when they do us harm, that we are supposed to just like hold that as a knife to their throat and make that like the sentiment of like every single issue. You know, like when something else happens, then we throw that one situation up and then we throw another situation up to just like kind of like prove a point about a person. But the only way that isn't eliminated is when you are accepting of a situation and you are able to let it go. Those are how those things work. I I feel like a lot of like the things that I feel like are dumb aren't really dumb. They're just things that I needed to talk about because in my brain it's dumb to not acknowledge it. It's dumb to pretend like they're not prominent thoughts that, what's the word, like afflict and affect me. One of my biggest things that I feel like I have struggled with for a really long time was this idea of closure. I had a friend ask me like, do you think it's better to, speak up or to just stay silent? Now, closure is such a crazy concept because I think it is to benefit you, but closure doesn't help at all. I had sought out closure, and that closure made me cry more than the situation did itself. When you seek out closure, it's because you want to pin up answers to questions in your head that you feel like you are deserving and you need to have an answer to in order to move on. But it's like sometimes that answer hurts more than the situation and the fact of the matter itself. The idea of if it's better to say things or to hold your peace is kind of crazy because it's like, I think everything happens for a reason. You felt urged to say it, so you said it. And whatever happens from that outcome of you saying it is what happens. And I think that was bounded to happen. I think there are so many things that we want to say to other people just to make ourselves feel better, just to make our consciences feel better, just to make like our peace of mind kind of like ease into a situation. Am I tripping? Just to make our peace of mind kind of ease into a situation. And sometimes it doesn't always work because we just keep coming up with more things to say, keep coming up with more things to add. Like, we're never really in a direct state of mind. I don't really know how to answer that question if some things are better left said or unsaid because I'm 9 times out of 10 going to say what I need to say. I feel like holding it in suffocates me more than it helps me. Journaling it makes me lose my mind sometimes. I'm such a big advocate for journaling, but sometimes journaling makes me feel like I'm crazy. I'm like, I just need to know, and I will go and ask because I feel like if that is how my brain is calmed and I have answers to my questions, then that's going to solve my problems. But it doesn't because then I have more questions for the questions that you just answered. So I don't really know how to answer that. And that's why I think closure is so dumb because it just makes you spiral more and more and more and more. Like it makes you want more. And I think the whole idea and the whole reason that we came up with this closure is because we still are not able to let go and accept a situation. Everything really ties into the idea of acceptance and really like seeing situations for what they are. And I know that can be so hard because your brain is truly the most tricky and scariest place sometimes. To have so many thoughts and have so many concerns and have so many like hypotheticals and what ifs, it really just like trips you up. You really think you have a good understanding, you think you're okay and you think you're fine, and then you think maybe this happened because of this, or maybe they did this because of this, or maybe they said this because of this, or I don't know why they said this, or I wonder why they said this. And it's very hard because your brain just keeps coming up with questions and questions and questions, and you're just seeking answers. And this is why closure is dumb, because you don't ever actually close that door. You keep coming back to it. You never give yourself an opportunity to heal, and you never really move on because you're always going to have questions. You're always going to wonder things. You're always going to want to need to know something. And sometimes it might be better to just be in the know. It's better to just not know. Is that saying right? To be in the know? Like, because it's like no, but then it's like no. I don't know if that makes sense. And I don't think I used the saying correctly, but it's better to just not know. Now, is it better to speak or to stay silent? I really don't know the answer to that. I would love to be on this podcast and know all the answers to every single question, but I really don't know. Because in some instances, I think it's better to just say how you feel. And in other instances, I think it's better to be silent. I think it's better to speak as less as possible so then you can be more observant and more like, I don't know, like more, I feel like there's more to tell in a person's nonverbals, but I don't know. I feel like that's just so like way off left and like not really like the question that's being proposed. So I don't know. I really don't know. And that's what kind of like trips my brain out is the not knowing and the not knowing. I think that's been like a really big thing. That is one of the things that I also think is dumb. Just like not knowing what to do, not knowing what to say, not knowing like if I should ever reach out, not knowing if I should move on, not knowing. I really wish sometimes, I think I always think this. I always am like, like I wish I had like a book that just told me like every little thing that I need to do in order to have the solution and the answer to every single problem. I think that's a problem, is the problem is just not being in control. Like, you know, yearning for control and not having it, because I wish I knew what to do, when to do it, how to do it, if I should do it, if I shouldn't do it. Like, I wish I had more control over myself, and I wish I had more control over my circumstances, and I wish I had more control over the things that were in my life, because maybe I could keep them for a little bit longer, or maybe I could just never have experienced them at all. And I think that is one of the things that I kind of hate, and the things that I think are dumb is just not having control and not being able to be in control. But that's life. I never said that the 10 things that I think are dumb are practical things, because not being in control is a thing that, it's a reasonable thing to think is dumb. Like, I hate that I'm not in control, but there are so much like divine purpose in not being in control. It's so that I actually like heard a saying, but I don't want to like bring it up. I feel like it's so controversial, but just the idea of like being in control, yearning for control. Like, I really wish like that was one of the things that I had. I had already talked about being forgiven. Sorry guys, I keep veering to my side because I had like made notes, but I don't know. I feel like it's just been so much to just like think about, so much to just like experience, so much to just like say. And each one of my thoughts have kind of like stemmed from different things in my life, and over these past like 3 weeks I feel like I've had so many like different perspective changes, different shifts and things, and I think it's like teaching me about myself, but it's also teaching me about the way that I counteract in relationships. I've learned to just be more present. I've learned to be more grateful for the things that I have around me already, and you know, focus on the things that are more positive and more within my ability to, you know, learn and apply. But these are like some of the things that have been like really prominent on my mind that I really have wanted to talk about for a really long time. This is very hard when you feel like there's so much to say and you don't know how to really get it all out. And yeah, guys, this was today's podcast episode. Happy Valentine's Day. I hope you guys have a really good day. I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. I don't have Instagram. I don't have Instagram at all, but if you guys want, you can follow me on TikTok, which is at the Divine Cupid. Share this podcast. Thank you guys so much for 80 subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing. Share this podcast. Send it to your friends. Send it to your family. Send it to your great grannies. Like, send it to anybody. I love you guys so much, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.